Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing fine. I'm just hearing news, reading on I was constantly looking at the SNY Twitter for any Mets free agent signings. Looks like there's not going to be any big free agent announcements until potentially, if any, until after the Queens Baseball Convention. I was hoping for something like maybe the same day they'll announce like the Mets like sign Yamamoto or something, or maybe hopefully seeing the Mets sign like Tommy. And then actually, but if the Mets were to pull that one off, I think there's only one way Steve Cohen should announce it. He should just show up spontaneously at the Queens Baseball Convention, and all of a sudden Ohtani just shows up there, speaking in front of a panel right there, and he announced it. He announced it at the Queens Baseball Convention. That's the way you've got to do it.
Well, that would definitely catch some headlines, no doubt about it. And we'll definitely get into some of that Mets free agent talk in a little bit. As you mentioned, definitely some talk about Ohtani, some talk about Yamamoto, and where things stand for the Mets. It's not really that big of an update, so I feel like that's why we'll touch on it a little bit later. But I did want to kick things off. I figure we'll start things off on a brighter note and a happier note. As let's kick things off at your Giants, Dan. I mean, a very, very nice win rolling into this Thanksgiving week now as the Giants end up going out to Washington. Quarterback Tommy DeVito secures his first win, throws 3 touchdowns in a 31-19 win at Washington. First time the Giants have forced 6 turnovers in a game since 2014, so just about a decade. Definitely a nice dominant win, something that we thought we might be seeing more from the Giants of this year. But, 3-8 right now, it is what it is. You still got to enjoy a win like that when you get it, right?
Yeah, I have to enjoy it, even though I'm like, where was this all year long so far? And I have to say, looks like they were finally letting DeVito throw the ball, and was showing he was good. The only problem I have was so many times he was holding on to the ball too long, which is really a horrible decision to do, especially with an offensive line that does a horrible job at protecting quarterbacks.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. You put the focus on that. You're 100% right. As Tommy DeVito, although look, he's a developing quarterback, so you're definitely right that he held on to the ball for way too long. Something that, as a Jets fan, I'm well aware of. Thank you, Zach Wilson. We'll get to that stiff a little bit, but Tommy DeVito, on the other hand, he, you have to give the kid credit too, because he took a beating in that game, getting sacked 9 times. Yes, a lot of those sacks probably were due to his inexperience and holding on to the ball too long, and obviously the crappy offensive line that's very injured and is starting to play a little bit better now. But you have to give Tommy DeVito credit, man. This is a kid that literally 2 or 3 weeks ago against the Jets, they weren't even allowing him to throw the football. And now against Washington, he's throwing 3 touchdowns, which, by the way, a guy I mentioned a minute ago, Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick in the draft in 2021, has never in 30-plus starts in the NFL had a 3-touchdown game. Tommy DeVito's already done it. And you have to say that Tommy DeVito has significantly less weapons than Zach Wilson does, because Tommy DeVito does not have a Garrett Wilson on that team. There's no receiver on the Giants as good as Garrett Wilson. And, while Saquon Barkley, you could argue, is probably at a higher, playing at a higher level than Breece Hall right now, it's tough to really appreciate Saquon when he's not able to run the ball as effectively because the offensive line has struggled so much. So, you really have to give it to Tommy DeVito because his weapons have been very, very limited, and he still played pretty damn good ball.
Yeah, I have to give credit to that. I mean, when he won that, I kind of got my sister to borrow a car, and we went out to Jersey to get a Taylor ham sandwich somewhere in Jersey in honor of Tommy DeVito.
Exactly. Got yourself a nice Taylor ham sandwich. Tommy DeVito said he was kicking back, eating some chicken parmesan from his mom. So Giant fans are eating good, no doubt about it, as they ended up getting a very big win against Washington as they drop Washington to 4-7, 2-0 against them on the season. So they sweep the season series. And thank God for the Commanders, because if it wasn't for them, the Giants would never win any division games. But definitely love the fact that they swept that series. The Commanders, a lot of people take them lightly, and Sam Howell did not play well on Sunday at all. But the Commanders are a dangerous team still. We've seen them, be in games that nobody expected them to be in late. We've seen the Commanders play pretty decent defense. And, Eric Bieniemy, the former Chiefs offensive coordinator, has done a pretty decent job this year as well with Sam Howell moving the ball. So there are some things that, aren't awful about the Commanders. Look, still, even with as bad as everything has gone wrong for the Giants this year, they're only a game behind the Commanders now. So it's if you're a Giants fan, obviously this is not up to your standards, no doubt about it. But when you see the team come out and perform like this against a relatively decent team, like Washington, I just want to reiterate, Washington is not as bad as everybody thinks they are. But definitely, Brian Daboll out coaching and the players outperforming Ron Rivera and the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, so I gotta have to give credit to that. Even though the Commanders are like maybe in the maybe the bottom that's the league this year, it was a good feel good win going into what's been going to be a disappointing season this year. Hard to believe that we're like practically out of it at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, especially with as high as the Giants were riding last year. I mean, obviously they ended up getting blown out against Philadelphia in the divisional round, but this is a team that ended up going 9-7-1 last year, made the playoffs, won a playoff game in Minnesota, which a lot of people, including myself, didn't really think they had much of a chance at. Well, the Minnesota Vikings choked that out. The Giants played a fantastic game, won that game, ended up getting blown out in Philly, but Philly's the eventual NFC champions. But I mean, it's just crazy when you think about it. The Giants were just a couple of good quarters away against the Eagles from actually being in the NFC championship game. And now, to have fallen like this, it's definitely, definitely not something Giant fans anticipated. But you know what? This is about, now we're going to see the mettle of this team. And now we're going to see what Brian Daboll can get out of these guys when things aren't going well. We're going to be talking about Robert Saleh with the Jets in a minute. And it really reflects either very well or very poorly on a coach how his team reacts in times like this right now. And being 2-8, and at the time, 2-8, everybody counting you out, nobody giving the Giants the time of day, to come out and perform like that, you have to give the credit to Coach Daboll. And even though they haven't had the greatest season, definitely it kind of, there were a lot of people questioning Brian Daboll, earlier this year, putting a lot of, putting his name in the same sentence as a Ben McAdoo, that type of thing. And, me and you've discussed this on the show before. this might not have been Daboll's best season so far. I think there are a lot of things that we can, talk about that Brian Daboll could have done better this year. But to be honest, you can't knock the guy too much, man. He's had, devastating injuries to his quarterback and his backup quarterback. His offensive line has been destroyed. His running back missed a good portion of the year early on when they really, really could have used him. And the Wink Martindale's defense has played pretty well. So you other than the defense, the offense has been the big killer this year. So I can't sit here and kill Daboll from that because of how injury riddled the Giants have been.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the Daboll's getting at least one more year. I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that's the right move. And it's going to be a big nostalgic matchup this Sunday as the Giants play New England this Sunday, November 26th, 1 p.m. They have their bye week following that, a week 13 bye, very, very late in the season. And, right now, the only thing you can really do is sit here and, I guess, look, at this point, the Giants probably hurt their chances to get a top 3 pick because as we could see, the Bears, the Panthers, that bottom of the NFL, the Cardinals, those guys, it's going to be a very tough process for those guys to win any more games. And you got to figure that the Giants are going to at least go out there and win another game or two more, if not more. So, maybe the dreams of getting a top 5, top 3 draft pick aren't there, but the Giants should be able to really help their team, especially too if they're saying to themselves, hey, we're going to stick with Daniel Jones for another year or two and see what we could get out of the kid. And if there's no quarterback there, maybe the Giants can shift and potentially bring in a top of the line, top 10 draft pick wide receiver or somebody like that could really help change the Giants' outlook on offense, kind of like how Garrett Wilson has helped the Jets offense from that perspective.
Yeah, I feel like that could be going the option. If we're not getting like the top 3 draft pick, probably we're going to draft a wide receiver. It looks like all signs are going to be pointed to that, which is still not bad of a thing. That maybe that'll probably still get me to want to watch the draft, seeing who we sign, because it still could be a franchise altering a draft pick still.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it, man. I mean, for the most part, when you pick that high in the draft, I still feel like picks in the top 15 can all, and even really in the first round too. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. Patrick Mahomes was the 28th pick overall. So it happens later on. But I feel like when you have a pick in that top 10 to 15 range, you cannot miss on those picks. And I feel like the Giants having that kind of pick this year with the talent they already have, because we already know, a lot of people feel like the Giants have a great coach, great GM, and a very decent core of the team. If you add another decent player or two to that, this could become a very, very deep Giants team very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel there's going to be definitely a good draft pick going on there, and like I said, still something that's going to be well worth watching, because usually the years I've watched the draft, like I've actually watched it on TV, seen who the Giants are going to pick. Usually, if I know there's going to be like potentially a franchise-altering pick, it is a must-watch to get to see this when they get to see that memory when they introduce this player that's going to be that's going to be franchise-altering, as I said.
Absolutely, Dan. So definitely still a lot of things to watch for the Giants right now. Even though, like we said, this season hasn't gone exactly the way they have, still definitely a lot of things to keep your eye on, because situations like that are what build your team for tomorrow. We've seen, as I've mentioned, we're going to move on right now to the Jets, and that there are a lot of things that the Jets have screwed up over the last couple of years that are still coming back to haunt them. As much as we loved the draft from last year with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson and all those cornerstone guys, there have been a lot of swings and misses for this Jets team. I mean, obviously, the big one is Zach Wilson, and we're going to start there as the Jets get blown out in Buffalo, end up losing the game 32-6. Zach Wilson is benched for the fourth time in his career, not injury related. Zach Wilson has actually been benched 6 times in his 3-year NFL career, 2 injury related, 4 are horrible play related. And right now, Zach Wilson is facing that once again. He's probably thrown, and dear God, please let this be the truth. Zach Wilson has probably thrown his final pass in a Jet uniform. And look, I got people reaching out to me on Twitter saying it's not all Zach. Can we stop with the Zach Wilson nonsense? The guy is a terrible quarterback. Every metric of every number that you want to look at tells you Zach Wilson is not only one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL today, he is one of the worst quarterbacks drafted in the history of the NFL draft. He is on the level of a Jamarcus Russell bust. You know, that's how bad it was. And Jamarcus Russell didn't give a shit about football. He didn't study. He didn't care. The sad thing is that Zach Wilson is actually trying, and he still sucks as much as Jamarcus Russell. Now, I don't have anything against Zach personally. Seems like a good kid. Seems like that he's trying. I do give him credit that, the Jets allowed him to speak to reporters after being benched. The kid said all the right things. He said, I understand we're not moving the ball. We're not scoring points. And eventually when that happens in the NFL, a change has to be made. And right now, Tim Boyle, a guy who in college, by the way, Tim Boyle's record at college, I'm not sure what his game record was, but his touchdowns to interceptions at college was 1 touchdown to 13 interceptions. So he ends up coming to the NFL. He's had time with Green Bay as Aaron Rodgers backup. He also spent time with Chicago and Detroit the last couple of years. In 2021, he started a few games for the Lions, throwing 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. This is a guy that knows the Nate Hackett offense. This is a guy that has been deeply involved with it over the last couple of years. I heard him talking about it, how, especially last year when he really didn't play at all and was pretty much just the practice squad the entire season, kind of allowed him to delve into football at a deeper level than he's ever really looked at it before. And so it's really going to be interesting, to see how this quarterback, which might not, this is going to be the ultimate test of what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. If you look at Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson on paper, every single thing goes Zach Wilson's way. Zach Wilson's more athletic. Zach Wilson has the better arm. Zach Wilson, on paper should be the better quarterback. But when you look at the mental part of it, Dan, when you look at, what this guy has going on between his ears, I think Tim Boyle blows, Zach Wilson out of the water as being a student of the game and, understanding defenses that he has to try to beat. Zach Wilson just tries to throw it up sometimes or not even attempt to throw it up, but just sometimes even more sickening. And Tim Boyle is going to be able to look at that same defense and understand what they're doing. He's not guessing like Zach Wilson is. So what do you think, Dan, as an unbiased observer of this situation? If this is your call, how do you like the Jets putting Tim Boyle in this spot now?
Well, I think this is a good call right now. Seeing what they got right now, it's kind of they're pretty much. It looks like now they're just playing out the string of the season. Definitely for sure, Aaron Rodgers is not coming. And
Oh, Dan, you can finish up, but I wholeheartedly disagree with everything you just said there. But continue.
but yeah, it's pretty much Jet fans that have to count their lucky stars that Aaron Rodgers was willing to give it another year because of the way it's out this year so far.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you this, Dan. Right now, the season, um, I definitely don't think right now the Jets are playing out the string. I don't think that could be further from the truth, because right now everything is so bunched together in the playoffs. But we're not in the old days of the 6 playoff team format. When we're in this format now, where this 7th team is getting in, you're gonna have a chance for this for these 500 or sometimes less than 500 mediocre teams getting in. And I think that's what opens the door for the Jets. I'd be much more inclined to agree with you if it was the old days. But you know what? Even as Aaron Rodgers astutely pointed out on Pat McAfee the other day, there have been teams that came back and went deep in the playoffs, even in that format. I mean, look, in 2016, the Green Bay Packers were 4-6 and ended up winning the last 8 games of the season until they lost in the NFC Championship game, which, by the way, if you remember, if the Packers defense was, the Packers defense allowed 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes and blew that game. So Aaron Rodgers and those 2016 Packers were pretty much less than 2 minutes away from having a 4-6 season turn into a Super Bowl berth. If you look back to the 2009 Jets, who had a young quarterback a lot of people didn't believe in Mark Sanchez, they were also 4-6 in Rex Ryan's first year. Next thing you know, they end up going 5-1 down the stretch. They're also in the championship game that year against the Colts, which they unfortunately lost, but they got there on the way, beating the San Diego Chargers, who were heavily favored, and the Cincinnati Bengals. So just because it doesn't look good right now doesn't mean it's over. Now, if Zach Wilson was still the guy that the Jets were depending on to lead them on this, I would totally agree with you. The season's over. Jets are done. But this has just been announced by Aaron Rodgers himself that he is expecting to start practicing with the team by his birthday, which is December 2nd. Now, if we're sitting here doing the math, that means we're about 10 days away from Aaron Rodgers practicing. And the second Aaron Rodgers steps on that practice field, because he's on IR, it opens up a 21-day window in which he can return from the IR. The Jets have 21 days to activate him, or they can't, and his season will be over, which, it depends how the Jets play this out. But obviously, a lot of it is depending on if the Jets go out and win a big game on Friday against the Miami Dolphins. Now, nobody's picking the Jets. The Jets are 10-point underdogs at home with Tim Boyle coming in. And I'm telling you right now, Dan, I don't know why I should have no faith that my team can pull this off, but I'm telling you right now, if the Jets, and for some reason I believe, and maybe I'm just a fool, I feel like the Jets are going to win this game. And if I'm right, 5-6 right now, which the Jets would be if they win that game, that's good enough to keep them alive, man. That's really good enough to keep them alive. I think that if the Jets can be either 6-7, or God forbid they win the next 3 and go in 7-6 to that Dolphin game on December 17th, I think Aaron Rodgers is coming back for that game. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is coming back no matter what. Now, I hear a lot of people saying, let me ask you this too, Dan, because this has been a point of conversation on WFAN the last day or two as well. Let's say, for argument's sake, that you're right, and the Jets are playing out the string, and they lose tomorrow against Miami, and the season is effectively over. So maybe by the time Aaron Rodgers comes back, the Jets are like 5-9 or something like that. Let's say that's the case. If you're the GM or you're the coach, if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back, do you let him, Or do you tell him, Aaron, let's wait till 2024?
Well, I think it's two train of thought. The Army would want to let him wait till 2024, but if he wants to come back, I'd say go for it. I just feel sometimes these players they just want to come back. They want to show that they this way the rust the next time when they come back next year. Avoid that rust.
Yeah, you know what? I really agree with you, Dan. I really do, because the fact is that if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back, Aaron Rodgers is basically at this point the de facto co-owner of the Jets. Whether Woody Johnson likes it or not, Aaron Rodgers has the sway to do whatever he wants. And if he wants to come back, and you know what? I heard a lot of people on WFAN, Greg Giannotti and Boomer Esiason, both poo-pooing it this morning, saying that Rodgers shouldn't come back, Rodgers shouldn't be allowed to come back, and that they even went as far to say, as Jet fans should be down there with signs telling Rodgers to stay away, which I find to be completely insane, because first off, let's be honest, this is professional sports at the highest level. Now, are the Jets known for always doing the right thing? No. But do we really think that the Jets are going to jeopardize Aaron Rodgers' health just to get him back out there? Let's be honest. If Aaron Rodgers does happen to come back and play a game at any point this season, we both know that he's going to have to go through the every single medical thing that the trainers and the Jets doctors need him to pass, right? I mean, this isn't going to be just throwing a guy to the wolves, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to go through all these medical evaluations and stuff, so it's not like he's just coming in cold like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like me and you playing the position where, we're coming off an injury and we don't know how to protect ourselves. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been playing this game at the highest level for, the last 17, 18 years. He knows how to protect himself, and he knows his body. And if Aaron Rodgers trusts his body enough that he could go out there and feel like he can protect himself behind that offensive line, and even if it's a game that doesn't matter, he wants to go out there and like you said, Dan, makes a lot of sense too. He wants to shake the rust off and maybe not only show the fans, but show himself that even after this injury, he can still do it. I mean, you got to remember the season ends on January 8th. Now, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you still haven't played, that means that you're going to be sitting around since September 11th, wondering all off season from January until training camp, can I still do it? That would definitely be a thought in his head. And hey, maybe if he comes back for one of these couple of games at the end of the year and shows himself and everybody else that he can still do it, that's one less thing for him to worry about all off season, right?
Yeah, that's what that feels like.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I think we're on the same page on that. Definitely, Rodgers, if you want to come back, you're more than welcome. We're putting out the welcome mat for you. But yeah, back to this game tomorrow night. What do you think, Dan? It's a pretty cool 3 p.m. Black Friday game, the first ever Black Friday game in the history of the NFL. It's actually, oddly enough, the third time in history the Jets and the Dolphins have played on a Friday. They did it in 1966, in which the Jets won in their first ever meeting between the two teams. And they also did it at the Orange Bowl in 1983. So very interesting that this is not the first, but the third Jet-Dolphin game to take place on a Friday. And, the Jets now with a kind of unknown in quarterback with Tim Boyle being 10.5-point underdogs at home. After everything we just talked about, Dan, we know the high octane offense of the Miami Dolphins. We also know the Jets have a pretty damn good defense. In your estimation right now, Dan, what do you think 2 days out? Do you think that this Jets offense is going to be enough to compete with the Dolphins? Or do you think that this Dolphins offense is just going to put this game away?
Well, I think this game is going to go all in the hands of the defense. If the Jets defense could hold can hold can keep the Jets in this game, then I feel like the chances of them winning are great. Also, speaking of this game, for those of you in the New York area that complain, oh, I don't have Amazon, I don't have access to the game. Here in New York, this is in the New York area. It's going to be broadcasted on Fox 5 if you're in the New York area, so you'll have access to the game because of the NFL rules that if the local team, the game has to be available on network TV. So because the local team in the New York area, it will be available on Fox 5. Of course, also good news for everyone else that will normally be complaining they have to get Amazon to watch this game, and he just gets out of state. Good news, Amazon is making this game available for free. I noticed an advertisement that they're making this game available for free. Apparently, I don't know how that works, how you set up the thing to watch it for free. They're making this game available for Amazon is making this game available for free. If you're out of state and want to watch this game and don't have an Amazon subscription, you could watch this game. They're making this game available for free. Apparently, not sure how that works.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. That's pretty cool though, and I guess that makes sense for them too, because especially on Thanksgiving, they probably want to be able to talk about how many people watch the game on their stream the next day. And, obviously, if it's a pay stream, then it's going to be less. But hey, maybe they'll be able to garner a really, really big viewership by doing that. So that's a smart move by them. That definitely makes a lot of sense, especially in the situation where this game is being played. Very cool, man. So yeah, and actually, Dan, too, if you are going to be watching that game, whether it be on Fox 5 or whether it be on Amazon for free, and you're interested in seeing a little Black Friday best seat in the house post-game action, we're going to be coming live right after that game, probably sometime around 6:30, I'd assume, whenever the game ends, right around there, 6:30, 7 o'clock. Black Friday, we'll be doing our live post-game show on Patreon, and it's only $5 to get in. And where can they do that, Dan?
Subscribe to our Patreon, and it's only $5. It's a great deal. It's even better than the deals you'll get on Black Friday when you're trying to put yourself in harm's way to get these deals on Black Friday. You're probably getting a couple of bruises. You don't have to worry about getting attacked or anything to get this Black Friday deal. It's only $5. No Black Friday riots in the stores. No fighting other people in the store for that one last thing you're trying to buy. $5. Subscribe. It's done in your comfort of your own home. $5. You can watch our little. You can subscribe to our Patreon, get access to our post-game shows during all that we've been doing all football season long, along with some other Patreon content. And you also get early access to a little video you probably noticed, if any of you know on my YouTube, little video we filmed. You get early access to that. You get early access to that video. Exactly.
Early access.
You get early access.
Yeah,
exactly.
Keep it up, Dan.
Of course, also I got to say about this game, I'll be doing a little two-screen action with this game because it'll be on at the same time as the Rangers game. So I'll probably have one game on TV, the other on the tablet. That's in there in my living room, keeping track of that. So that's gonna be an interesting Black Friday. It's probably gonna be eating some leftovers also.
No doubt about that, man. A nice turkey sandwich and some leftovers on Friday. Watching the little Rangers at 1 o'clock, and the Jets and the Dolphins at 3 o'clock. Ride or die for the Jets at this point. Now you got to win this game. 5 and 6, you're alive. 4 and 7, you're pretty much buried and done. So, going to be very interested to see how this all plays out. And if you want to hear our reactions to it, like Dan said, www.patreon.com/best seat in the house podcast. Get you in for $5, and we appreciate it. You get a lot of bang for that buck, no doubt about it, including the live not pre-taped, but live post-game reactions. So,
Yep, exactly. And it makes a great gift for that fan of this show in your life. If you know someone in your life that's a fan of this show, it makes a great gift.
exactly. Well said, Dan. Well said. So, real quick, we got a couple of fun things to talk about with the basketball and the hockey teams before we get out of here. But I do want to turn our attention to a little hot stove baseball before we move on to that. We all love our hot stove baseball, no doubt about it. And definitely, it's starting to get a little hot right now as Yoshinobu Yamamoto was posted by his Japanese team, the Oryx Buffaloes, on Tuesday, and he can now negotiate with any team. This is going to be one of those situations where it's going to cost a lot of money to land this guy. There are a lot of teams bidding for his services already. Teams are already talking about this being a showdown between the Mets and the Yankees. The Dodgers are involved. I've heard the Cubs, the Red Sox, even supposedly the Braves have stuck their nose in there. I mean, I'm sure pretty much every team has probably checked in to see what it would take to land Yamamoto. But, what is your early take on this right now, Dan? Do you think that this is a guy that the Mets are going to go, like all in on? Or do you think that, because we got to remember too, Ohtani is floating around out there and you don't want to kind of, blow your load, for lack of a better term, with Yamamoto, if you could still land, a guy like Ohtani. Now, we hope that with our boy Stevie Cohen running things, that's not necessarily the case, but who knows what David Stern's, appetite is for spending, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars this offseason, which is what it was going to take. People are saying Yamamoto could command anywhere around 200 million, where people are still talking about 4 or 5, maybe even 600 million for Ohtani. So where are you at right now with this, Dan?
I just feel like the Mets have to go. They have to go after him. I feel like Steve Cohen. I feel like David Stern. They know they got to go after him. This team is lacking pitching. This is one of the top pitching free agents. They can't let this guy go without a fight.
So what number, do you have a number in your head that you would be willing to go to for Yamamoto? Or is it, or are you of the mentality that I kind of fall into right now of who cares? We have the most money in baseball. This is why we have Steve Cohen as our owner. Go out there. If Yamamoto wants $200 million, give him $200 million.
I think Steve Cohen's gonna be like, who cares if we're going for it. Without a doubt, they have to.
No doubt about it. So yeah, so we definitely agree on that. That yeah, I mean, whatever the cost is, bring this kid in, because you know what? As much as I love Kodai Senga too, and I think that Kodai Senga signing is looking better every day. We got to remember one thing too: the Mets signed Kodai Senga 5 years, $75 million, and he's 30 years old. So the Mets are going to have Senga signed till he's about 34, 35 years old. You expect his production to stay around the same, but you never know. And but on the flip side for Yamamoto now, this is a kid who's only 25. So if you sign him to a 5, 6, 7 year deal, he's still going to be, in his 30s, his early 30s, 31, 32, depending on what the length of the contract is. So you are going to be paying for and getting this kid in his prime years.
Yeah, exactly. This is one that they can't let slip through their fingers. I would be upset if they did.
Yeah.
It would be a feeling that I hadn't felt since that time when the Knicks tried to pull everything to try to get LeBron James and they failed. That's what I would feel like if we failed to do this.
Yeah, well, you know what would make it even worse too, because you mentioned the LeBron thing, and obviously that hurt the Knicks because he ended up going to a Eastern Conference foe of the Knicks with the heading down to Miami, taking his talents to South Beach, as he eloquently said. But it could hurt even more if Yamamoto decides to join a team like the Braves. As much as it would suck for us to see him sign with the Yankees, I would much rather see this guy or one of the other guys we're targeting go to the Yankees than see them go to a team like the Phillies or the Braves, because it would suck to share a town with him, but it would suck even more to share a division with him.
Yeah, I would just. Oh my God, you would. I don't think you'd be able to talk to me for a week.
Yeah, that's understandable, man. I definitely would be, fuming beyond comprehension too, just like you, if something like that would happen. But one thing that actually came out today, it was in a Sports Illustrated article, that word is leaking from around Yamamoto that he would like to play around other Japanese players. Now, I think right from hearing that right off the bat, that seems to bode well for the Mets in my mind, because let's be honest, how many other Japanese players are in Major League Baseball? There's a decent amount, maybe like a handful at this point, but especially the higher profile Japanese players, like the Mets already have Senga, which hopefully he has some kind of relationship with Yamamoto, and maybe they'd like to be on the same pitching staff together here in the States. But perhaps too, even if the Mets get in on Ohtani, then you have a potential of having a trio of 3 Japanese superstar players here with Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Senga all here at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be something else. I could tell you I would expect to find a lot of, maybe a huge influx of maybe flights from Japan to a lot of flights to New York from Japan might be a hot commodity.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That Tokyo to JFK flight is going to be stalled out every time these guys are all getting together if the Mets are having a homestand. So that and that's the type of thing that Steve Cohen talked about when he wanted to join the Mets too, is that he wanted to raise the Mets profile, in all aspects, and internationally would be another big thing. The Yankees, everybody's known about the Yankees in Japan for a long time. You see people wearing Yankee hats who've never even been to Yankee Stadium or New York, nonetheless. But they remember growing up and seeing, even though he wasn't that great with the Yankees, Hideki Arabu, and then Hideki Matsui, and just the tradition of Japanese ball players here in New York. Obviously, the Mets have had a bunch of Japanese ball players too, with Kaz Matsui and Tsuyoshi Shinjo, and Hideo Nomo was here for a cup of coffee, Masato Yoshii, but none of those players are at the star level of the guys that we're talking about right now. So it would really, really change the game. Even Senga, I'm a big fan of Senga, and he was a big signing last offseason. But as much as great as he was, look, he was right up there in the Rookie of the Year voting. I think he kind of got screwed in the Cy Young voting. I was very disappointed to not see his name among the finalists, the top 3. He actually finished 6th, which we maybe get into that at a later date. But this is why the media voting for these things is always annoying, because when you look at a lot of the guys that they had above him, seems a little ridiculous to me for a rookie pitcher with an ERA under 3. But that's neither here nor there. But it just bringing in that level of star power to the Mets to get back to the point of the conversation, that would be huge for the Mets brand as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a huge thing. I always tell people, there's a little joke I tell people. If you're visiting New York and you're asking a New Yorker for directions, I tell people you might not want to ask some of the people wearing Yankees hats, because they might be just tourists. Your better chance of finding a local that'll give you directions. The ones wearing the Mets hats might do a better job than the ones wearing Yankees hats.
That's true. That's very, very true, man. You're absolutely right about that. So,
Yep,
yeah,
and we're actually a real baseball team. We have uniforms and everything.
you got that right. And it's going to be interesting to see if Yamamoto wants to play for that baseball team, or any other great stars the Mets are going to be targeting. One guy right now on the other side of town that is being targeted right now, that there are a lot of whispers going around before we move on from baseball, is that the Yankees right now are looking at a possible trade for Juan Soto. Now, nothing has necessarily been, it's not like these talks are heated up right now and the Yankees are on the brink of acquiring Juan Soto, but it has been noted by guys with knowledge and sources that the Yankees right now, one of their targets for the offseason is Juan Soto. Now, if you look at Juan Soto's career, this is a guy that can hit for average. He leads the league in walks every year. He's got a 400 on base percentage every year. He's a lefty. This is the type of guy the Yankees need in that lineup. I mean, he would completely change the entire complexion of that lineup and take a lot of pressure off Aaron Judge. And even with all these walks, maybe have, believe it or not, base runners on in front of Aaron Judge. So that would be a very interesting trade candidate for the Yankees. I mean, it's going to take a lot to get him. They're going to have to at least give up 4 or 5 high-end prospects for him. But, that would certainly be something worth considering for the Yankees. But you know what, Dan? As tantalizing as that could be for them, I feel like it would almost be like Carmelo Anthony when the Knicks traded for him and just gave up the house because Jim Dolan panicked and wanted to bring him in. And where if the Knicks had just been patient and waited a couple of months, they wouldn't have had to give up Danilo Gallinari and the first round picks and all these guys they had back then. Then you could have had all those assets and Carmelo because everybody knew he was coming here anyway. Now, if the Yankees just want to throw a bag of money at Soto, they could have him themselves. So, I don't know, man. I feel like I understand why they want him, but you don't want to hamstring your organization by giving up too much to get him.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like it might not be a good idea for the Yankees. I mean, look at those that team, that Yankee dynasty. They had the ability to get some free agents they needed to get. They were able to get some good free agent signings. But one of the key, I feel like the key cornerstones that made that Yankee dynasty was the homegrown talent. Yep. They actually that was what made that dynasty, and they need to more look into that potentially.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, and that's another reason too why I thought that when the Yankees had all that talent back in 2017, the 2015 to 2017 range right there, when they were really, Gary Sanchez is a young player, Justice Sheffield, Aaron Judge, all these kids coming up that, Gleyber Torres too was in that mix, and there was a lot of expectations attached to these kids. I feel like the Yankees have squandered a lot of that outside of obviously the greatness that is Aaron Judge. But, when you look at the rest of this Yankee team, you have to be surprised that they haven't even been to a World Series with all that talent. So it's one thing for the Yankees to sit here and start trading guys that maybe they don't view as guys that are going to be around forever like that. Like they don't see any Jorge Posadas or Andy Pettitts or Mariano Rivera's or Derek Jeter's in that mix. No Bernie Williams or anything like that. But, that's the thing about the Yankees, though. You have to make sure that they're making the right assessment on their talent. And I don't know if I necessarily trust them to do that right now.
Yeah, I'm really shocked that Brian Cashman is still GM of the Yankees. He just doesn't seem to get it. And this is me just looking at an outside perspective that isn't a Yankees fan, and I'm seeing this. He just doesn't seem like he's has it. It just feels like he potentially just rode the coattails of the of the previous GM. Like he just came in and was lucky to have what Gene Michaels had before him, what did before him, and he just managed to get some more, maybe get a championship or two out of it. Now it seems like we're starting to see that maybe he's not the answer. I'm shocked he's still the GM this year.
Well, I mean,
from what I hear from a lot of Yankee fans.
Well, let's be honest, Dan. He took over in 1998, and while I do agree with you that 98, 99, a lot of those teams that won those championships were probably on the back of Gene Michael. He did have 20 years of sustained success after that, and as you mentioned, including the 2009 championship that really is all his. But I'll say this: I have in the past been a big defender of Brian Cashman. To a lot of my frustrated Yankee fan friends and everything like that. But I do agree with you. I think that what you're saying might not necessarily apply through 2017, but like we were just talking about, I think you're right on the money if we're talking about 2017 on, because Brian Cashman has made a lot of really bad decisions in that time and squandered a lot of the talent that he that he spent years and years building, and he didn't turn that talent into what they needed. So, I think we're kind of on the same page with that too. I think that Brian Cashman probably should have been fired last year, and I think the same thing about Aaron Boone too, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like he just doesn't have the stock. They're still Aaron Boone's still managing, and shocked Brian Cashman still this year. I feel like if he fails, and I'm almost sure that this year, if they don't turn it around, Brian Cashman is Gonski, along with Aaron Boone.
Yeah, well said, man. Well said. And you hope, if you're a Yankee fan, which obviously me and you are not, but if you're a Yankee fan, you got to hope that this crappy season the Yankees had was a real wake-up call to Hal, because, look, to be honest, and I hate saying this too, but to be honest, look, there's a big difference between the Mets and the Yankees, and the Mets can have these type of seasons where they crap out and have a bad year, and okay, we'll regroup in the offseason and start with a clean slate next year. The Yankees aren't like that, man. You have to be able to answer when you have a bad season like this for the Yankees. And I think that Hal is giving Cashman this year. He said, look, you bottomed out this year. Next year, things have to change. And we have to see this team obviously make the playoffs. I definitely think there's a playoff mandate for next year, because if they miss the playoffs and Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone keep their jobs next year, Yankee fans will revolt. And I don't blame them. So the bar is definitely higher for the Yankees, and Hal Steinbrenner has to understand that. And I think that maybe that mandate Yankee fans have wanted is going to be enforced next year. And it's going to be real interesting to see the roster that Cashman builds in the meantime. But just as we sorry, Dan, do you want to add anything?
No, that was all I had to say about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know, for some reason, that response just reminded me of Fez. Remember Fez would answer Ronnie B like that sometimes? No, that's all I had on that.
Yeah, I remember that. That brings back such great memories by the late great Fez Watley.
Oh yeah, love you, Fez. Miss you, buddy. Always loved Ron and Fez's Thanksgiving special. So it's always tough now this time of year when we don't get that,
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough doing that. I might have to go maybe listen to old Thanksgiving specials after the Rangers game. Give one of them an old listen. That is nostalgic.
Absolutely, Dan. And see, this is why we have such great chemistry, as the Chippa used to say, because you just did the perfect segue right there, Dan. Let's head into a little bit of Rangers talk. We're going to wrap up the show right now with a little Rangers and Knicks talk. And, man, I mean, right now the Rangers have been off to a hell of a start. It was a tough game on Monday, though, as they blew a 2-0 lead in Dallas, gave up 5 goals in the third period, where, it was 2-0 late in the second period. The Stars got a quick goal late on the power play. Jordy Ben, one of their captain, one of their better players, really sniped one that beat Shesterkin. The Rangers still led 2-1 going into the third period, but really fell apart as Dallas, who's a very good team too, by the way. Let's not shortchange them in any respect. Really went out and ripped the Rangers in that third period, outscoring them 5-1 en route to a 6-3 victory. So as good as this season has started off, that game will leave you with a bad taste in your mouth, right?
Yeah, it did. Like I was upset, throwing shit at the team. I was just upset. I could even tweets from some because some of the Rangers fans I follow on social media and stuff. I know there were some in Texas that were probably at the game that I knew were probably upset too. So it was just I was like, what did I see here? This whole third period, it's like this whole game just looked like we were winning this game. We were in this game, and then all of a sudden it just looked like we just fell out of it. Like, what the? I was just like scratching my head. What did I just see?
Yeah, it was an ugly one. But you know what? We got to give the team that every once in a while, especially when you're on the road. And by the way, the Rangers have really been playing a lot of games lately. They had that week off, and man, they have just been playing a game basically every other day since then. And now they're going to be playing. They played on Monday night. They're playing tonight now on Wednesday when we're recording this. Then on Black Friday they play again. So definitely the Rangers are going to be a little bit run ragged, but that's why right now it's been so important with what we've seen from the team so far. As right now they're off to their best start since a 9-1 83-84 season start. Unfortunately back then every great start was really marred by just knowing that the Islanders of the 80s were hanging over our heads, which the Islanders won 4 cups in the 80s, and 3 times they knocked the Rangers out to do it. So that always sucked, even as good as the Rangers had a couple of runs in those years. But best start since then. So it's been 40 years since the Rangers came out the gate like this. And speaking coming out of the gate, I mean, Artemi Panarin, who, I was very frustrated with after this postseason performance. Everybody really was talking about his struggles in big games in the last couple of years since his first year. But man, Panarin had a 15-game point streak to open the season. It ended on Monday night, but it's the longest that any Rangers player has had to open a season since the great one, Wayne Gretzky, in his first season on Broadway in 96-97. So, I mean, that's pretty high praise to be in the class of Wayne Gretzky. And Panarin has come out on fire this year, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. He's come out on fire. Like, I just had a feeling it was going to be one heck of a season, and so far, it's been great. I mean, his team has been on fire this year. Like, I just feel like we're gonna have. I feel like it'd be a disappointment if we didn't have a monster playoff, and I feel like we're gonna have that. We're gonna have a monster year this year.
I agree with you, man. Everything is setting up for that. It really looks like, bringing in this coach Laviolette, who just seems to, I don't know, understand locker rooms, understand players, and know how to motivate guys and get the best out of them. And that's what he seems to have done. It seems like he's unlocked Panarin, who, Artemi Panarin has not looked the same since David Quinn left, really. And I don't want to give David Quinn that much credit for Panarin's great success that first year. But it's also, it can't really be denied that the 2 years under Gerard Gallant, Artemi Panarin did not really look like Artemi Panarin. So And that's not really a shot at Gallant either, because I liked Gallant as a head coach, but it just seemed like, I don't know, maybe his coaching or his usage or whatever the situation was, Panarin's two, still points-wise, great years, but just the overall dominance that we're seeing this year out of him and that we saw in his first year as a Ranger wasn't really shown those 2 years in between. And, man, he looks like that Panarin from year one, right?
Yeah, exactly. He looks like that Panarin from year one. Also, I got to say tonight, hopefully we can somehow pull off beating Pittsburgh. And hopefully the refs don't try to rig this thing, because it just annoys that Met. Sidney Crosby is a damn. I feel like it's the same thing how a lot of us got annoyed at Tom Brady during those years. It's the same thing with this guy, and I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that refs don't rig this.
Yeah, and we've been getting a lot of shitty calls from the referees lately. I really have been. I mean, there was the situation in the last game where I really felt like it could have been goaltender interference that they originally called and then they took back, and the Rangers had a goal waved off. And I would say over the last 3 or 4 games, the Rangers have had to deal with a lot of questionable calls from the referees, and but hey, that's the name of the game. Sometimes you have to beat the referees too, and the Rangers weren't able to do that in the last game. Although I think their implosion in the third period really had nothing to do with the referees. It was just a lot more to do with crappy play by their defense. And but speaking of the defense, one thing that could really help that defense is the goaltender. And our goalie right now is still shaking off a little bit of rust. Igor Shesterkin is back after missing nearly 2 weeks, time in which, we had Jonathan Quick start a couple of games. We had Louis Domingue start a couple of games. He's back down in the AHL now. Jonathan Quick is now back as the backup. And Igor Shesterkin's back. And hey, look, Dan, if the Rangers are going to have that great season we're talking about and that deep playoff run that you mentioned earlier, it's all going to revolve around the goalie, Igor Shesterkin, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all going to revolve around Igor. I just feeling he's probably going to be better this game. I feel like I could tell there was like a little rust. I feel like that happens with these guys that are on the, that have been out a while. They kind of get that rust, but I feel like hopefully now he just got out of his system and going back to being that brick wall that Igor of a goalie that Igor could be, and and let's see, and hopefully we'll see that today, because I just have a feeling today's going to be a close game that's going to go down to that last minute.
It's definitely going to be a tight one, man. As you said, it's always interesting when the Rangers and the Penguins get together. And a lot of it's going to be on Shesterkin's back, as he's expected to make the start tonight. So hoping we could put 2 more points in the back pocket. And you know what? I feel like if any team could shake off the tough loss from Monday and be ready to move on, I feel like it's this Rangers team with their veteran composure and and great coaching from a head coach like Laviolette, who will not let them sit and beat themselves up over a loss like that for too long.
Yeah, I just feel like that. This team seems like when they have a bad loss like that, and they haven't lost that much this year, they're right back on the horse and they're ready to bounce all back in a big way. And I expect that tonight.
You got that right, Dan. So do I. And you know what? I also expect another one of our teams to bounce back tonight. That is the team that shares Madison Square Garden with the New York Rangers. No, I'm not talking about the Liberty. I'm talking about the New York Knicks. As the Knicks, they started off a little rocky earlier this season. They had a 2-4 start out of the gate. They didn't really look too great. They were a little banged up. But coming into tonight, they have a big matchup against the Miami Heat at the Garden, right? I believe it's at the Garden. And let me just double check that right now. It is at the Garden. That's correct. Starting at 7:30 tonight on Wednesday night as we record. And the Knicks are looking to bounce back. They ended up with a 117-100 loss in Dallas, capping off a 4-game road trip on Monday night. But prior to that, they had won 6 of the previous 7 games, a couple of them in comeback fashion, erasing fourth quarter deficits. So you really have to give credit to the Knicks, who, like we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, came out of the gate a little rough this year, but really found their way. And Jalen Brunson is playing at a high level. And, Tom Thibodeau, once again, good coaching always shows through. And Tom Thibodeau really has them playing pretty good basketball right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I expect them to continue that. I expect them to bounce off this win. Also, I gotta correct you on something you said. Like you were mentioning Liberty. The Liberty haven't played their home games in Madison Square Garden in ages. They actually use the Barclays Center now, I believe.
Do they use the Barclays? So why do they have the banner still hanging up over there?
I don't know why. Must be a blooper or something, because they had ever since the Dole they've moved their home games to the Barclays Center.
Ah, good. Well, take a hike, Liberty. All right. That's a good call on you, Dan. I didn't even realize that. As you can tell, I really don't pay that much attention to the WNBA. But, yeah, good call on that. I appreciate you not letting that one slide.
Yep, same thing here. I never do much, but I do see the advertisements that I am aware of these things.
Very true, buddy. There you go, man. So Knicks looking to redeem themselves against Miami tonight after a obviously the playoff ouster last year against Miami, where they got taken down unfortunately in the second round, and Miami ended up going all the way to the NBA Finals and losing in Game 6. But before we move on and call it a night, because we're just about done and just about ready to wrap it up over here. One last thing I want to talk about on the Knicks is that so far, we mentioned Jalen Brunson. RJ Barrett has also been great this year. He's averaging over 20 points a game. I really got to give this kid credit, because we've seen in the past RJ have up and down. He has been one of the most consistent performers for the Knicks this year, same as Jalen. And obviously a guy that we've really wanted to be that superstar. Julius Randle has not been that this year. This is a guy where the Knicks need Julius Randle to be averaging 24, 25 points a game. He's averaging 19.5 right now. Now, I know if you're not a big basketball fan, you probably think that, okay, a 4 or 5 point dip, that's not that big a deal. But when you're a guy like Julius Randle, the Knicks need him to put up numbers. And one of the things that drives me crazy about Julius is that he's not a good free throw shooter. So, it's just like, you have him late in the game, the opposing team is sending him to the free throw line, and they have no fear about it because this guy can't hit a big free throw to save his life. I still think that one of the biggest things that's going to hold this team back is Julius Randle, and I really, really hope they find a way to get rid of Randle and bring in, a good guy to replace him.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same thing, but he's like hitting the free throw line. I just feel like it's just you might as well put that sound effect, in this video I showed, the commercials thing, like that sound effect again. Oh no! Might as well have that sound effect whenever he's at the free throw line.
That's true. Oh no! You're right. That's what it feels like every time. You watch a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, it's like he's the good version of it, and the bad version of it is in the black and white, Julius Randle taking that shot and banking it missing it. So just really annoying stuff coming from that right now. We're gonna have to see Randle raise that level of play, or he's gonna keep dragging the Knicks down. But until then, right now, Knicks off to a decent start on a hot streak lately, and hopefully they can get back on that hot streak tonight against Miami. So definitely very very cool and very packed show tonight, Dan. I think that's just about going to do it for us. So you have anything that you'd like to plug before we get out of here?
Sure. I'd like to plug my Twitter account, Bobo103NYC. Also, Instagram, Bobo718DK. That's also the same username on my Threads account, even though I haven't used my Threads account that much, but I'll probably put some more posts on there. Also, one word, Daniel Curlin on YouTube. You probably noticed that video that's going to be watch on around 12 p.m. on November 26th. If you subscribe to that to this show's Patreon, you get early access to that video. You don't have to wait $5 a month. You get that in addition to our Patreon exclusive post game wrap up shows. You get early access. You get early access to some of the YouTube videos like these that we produce for my YouTube account. Early access deal.
Absolutely, Dan. And it's $5 to get in, as he said. Patreon.com / Best Seat in the House podcast. So thank you once again, everybody who's already signed up. Please sign up if you haven't already. If you're at all interested in seeing me and Dan give our post game wrap ups and everything like that. Anyway, so once again, everybody, just want to thank you guys for tuning in and catching the Best Seat in the House podcast. We do want to give, before we call it a week, a special happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching, to you and your family. Dan, I want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great one. I hope everybody watching has a great one, and just have the best turkey day you possibly can, right?
Yeah, exactly. Have everyone watching this, you have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Try not to get so blacked out drunk on the way home and stuff. If you're visiting your family, stay safe out there, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And from the Best Seat in the House podcast, this is your host, Rob Kramer, with my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll catch you on Friday on Patreon after Jets and Dolphins. Thank you, everybody, once again, and we'll catch you later this week.